So we have understood the definition of control statements, because when we say control statements, these are the statements which control or change the flow of execution, right? Because basically these play a very key role whenever we use or whenever we go for any application, whether it is related to web development or analysis or any simple case. Suppose even if you wanted to find out a simple factorial of a number, because if you wanted to print any kind of design format, everywhere the flow is very important, because as I told you, programming flow is mainly depending upon control statements, where in detail if we try to divide them, one part comes into decision and one part comes into repetition, because whenever we are trying to make up a decision, that's where we are forming a condition, right? That is the result. These are called as conditional statements, because decision control instructions are also called as conditional statements. Because whenever you are framing a condition, obviously what is the operator you should use? Because you already learnt about comparison operators, right? Yes, you try to find up some relation, whether you try to equals or not equals, less than equal to. That is the reason I told you these operators look very simple at that point, but how are you trying to use those operators to frame up a condition? Okay, because generally if we have a recap what we have learnt about operators, if you see, if I write 5 equal to 10, the result is always boolean, right? Because 5 is not equal to 10. You are trying to frame a comparison between both the values on different ends, some right side to left side, where you are trying to compare. Suppose if you are trying to give 5 not equal to 10, obviously what is the answer? It's true, because those are both are different. So obviously the result is boolean. Now what if you are trying to make up a statement or a use case where you wanted to change the output? So that's where you can use the first block of statements which comes under conditional statements are if, because generally this is same in C also, but we write in a different way here, because in C you don't have print function where you have printf function. Here you are using print function. Okay, generally relate the word to English language. What do you mean by if? Because whenever you are expressing something, you say if is something like my behavior is, his behavior is good if and only if. You write some way, right? You express in some way. Whenever you are using if, you are expressing some concern or you're expressing some condition. Okay, always relate any word in Python to general English word. That is the way I learned, and that is the way anyone who are beginning their career into Python should follow the same logic. Please do follow that, because if is also a keyword and where we generally use this, and the syntax looks like this, where you take up a test expression and you can write n number of statements, because this test expression is nothing but how do we use here relational operators or comparison operators. Okay, so let's go to the practical point and let's understand them in detail. So generally if you are trying to write up if, you make up your test expression. This text expression is very important. Whenever we use test expression, we generally end with colon, right? So if you end with colon, automatically here I am going to next line, but generally we take 4 spaces, because these 4 spaces is generally related to indentation, because indentation is very important in Python, right? Yes. So you keep up some statements. I am writing syntax here. So if you want to keep up some statements, you should write here hashtag, because if you don't write hashtag, that will be an error, right? So you can have n number of statements. N number of statements in the sense, what is your problem statement and how are you trying to evaluate it. Okay, let's take a simple example. You need not worry. Suppose if I declare 2 variables, a is equal to 15, I can write in a single line, right? B is equal to 10. Okay, what do you know here? If you try to find out some relationship, if I give a less than b, what is the answer? Is 15 less than 10? No, right? So obviously you will get false. What if I wanted to see the same result in a pretty different way, where instead of false, I should tell user that he has written some wrong expression, where I start using if. You can see the color changing to orange color, because if is a keyword. Because that is the reason I told you, you can see help of keywords, you get the list of keywords. So If you don't give space, again it is black color because it's a keyword. Just make sure whether you give parenthesis to separate it. If I write A less than B, if A is less than B, you have given your expression and you are ending with colon. See, once you end with colon, when you press enter, there you go. Automatically, we are having 4 spaces. Count the spaces from here, not here. Suppose what if you write here print? Why should you follow indentation? I'll tell you, you see. Automatically, when you press enter, you see, it is going to 4 spaces. You don't use that and you start writing here, print of true. You see the result. See what you are getting? Expected and indented block. So you should follow indentation because basically understanding indentation is very important in Python because Python uses 4 spaces. Basically Python uses 4 spaces when you are trying to separate with, when you are using conditions or when you are using repetition blocks, anywhere, whenever you are using colon to end that statement, automatically in the next line it will give you 4 spaces. Whether you are using interactive mode or scripting mode or any other IDE, you will be having automatically 4 spaces aligned. So Python uses 4 spaces for indentation because this is very important. So many people will just make mistakes here. So don't do that. If you don't want to use parenthesis, give space. In any way, you should understand the color coding over there. That is very important. If A is less than B, then you take print of anything. In print, whatever you write, the expression, if you write like this, the expression is true. If you write in this way, you can understand whether it is true or not. Okay, let's check whether it is true or not. If you press enter, what happens over there? You can see, next you don't see any result over there, but press one more time. No, you don't get any result. Why? Because the condition is 15 less than 10. What does that mean? Is 15 less than 10? It's no, right? So that is the reason you are not getting any result over here, because whenever you go for conditional statements, in specific you are using if block, if the condition is false, there is no result to be printed here. That means if you change the logic here, if A greater than B, now you write one more print, the result is true. Okay, let's see, press enter and press one more time. There you go, you got the result. Okay, then what if the condition is wrong? You can go for the other condition statements where we have else and elif, which we'll be learning step by step. So you need not worry about that logic, because if your condition is matching, then this gate will automatically open and whatever the statements you have here. Because if let me copy the same thing, I'll show you the simple result. Because if you copy the same thing, your print expects, your if expects one more thing, you can write any number of statements. See, automatically if the condition is satisfied, then both of them will be executed. That's where if plays a very key role. If the logic is correct, then automatically it allows n number of statements within that separate block. Okay, just make it simple. What if I don't use in this way? What if I write here? You see, now press enter one more time. What is happening over there? Invalid syntax, because you cannot specifically write in that way. You should follow a specific indentation, and that is where I'll be introducing why we'll go from interactive mode to scripting mode when we go for next series of videos. I'll make it very simple, because interactive mode is very simple when you go for starting stages, because you see the input, you see the output, it is very easy for you. But make it simple in any format or in any IDE. You know the Python, if you know Python programming, execution is simple, right? So need not worry about it. So always read the error and make sure how can you evaluate that point. Okay, now we have given input, and in the same way, if you can take input from user, it is fine. Okay, let's take a simple program. Let's take one more example where I wanted to take input from user. So write a Python program to express a digit in a word. That means if a user enters input as number, I wanted to print that result. That's it, right? Okay. So let's take num is equal to, so integer input, right? So take int of input of, so int of input of, enter a value. You can take any condition because we'll be seeing so many examples. So close the braces properly. Okay. Suppose if I am giving 5. Now what is num value? Num value is 5. So if I give, if whatever I give, if num is equal to 5, suppose I am taking as 5, because you can use any relational operator here. So it depends on user interest. You can use relational operator, and in the future cases we can use membership and identity. But basically comparison operators are widely used when you go for conditional statements, because it plays a very key role. For or if num is equal to 5, what I wanted to see the result, print it as 5, because I told you my program is to express a digit in a word. So 5 is 5. Okay, there you go. When you press enter, you are not seeing any result. That means because your if condition is expecting one more statement. If you don't have any statement, just press enter. There you go. Because whatever value you gave, 5 equal to 5, because you are comparing and this gate is open and you get whatever statements you have. So this is the way you take up the first statement, the first conditional statement, or the first type of control statement, if, because it is used to execute one or more statements depending whether the condition is true or not. It's very important. If the condition is true, gate is open. If the condition is false, it doesn't bother. Whatever the logic it is outside, it will execute it. So just make sure the logic is simple. It will be easier to interpret.